Well, good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
It's an early one today, so a lot of times when we do an off-cycle show, because we're doing this on Friday morning because you're going to be gone this weekend, and normally we do it at night, so we're full of energy and we're excited, and we're doing this morning. We're sleeping through the show probably, so.
Well, we're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. So we're gonna be talking about Ahsoka this morning. We'll do that kind of towards on the back end of the show, just so that if you have if you haven't seen it yet, you can pause the show. But we'll have a couple things to talk about before we get there. So first off, dude, my Brewers lost the other night. They're out. That sucks.
Yeah.
Against the Diamondbacks, the D-backs, which I sometimes mispronounce that. I don't know why they think that's okay to call themselves D-backs, because it just sounds too much like something I'm not allowed to say. So, and then, of course, there's a big football game here about a week and a half ago. Not quite a week and a half ago.
Oh, boy. Yes.
And
eight whole days ago.
I'm so glad that I didn't talk trash, because we got our backsides handed to us. So
Mitch is, of course, talking about the Lions-Packers Thursday night football game in Lambeau from last week.
Yeah.
In which the final score was not as representative of the game as perhaps one might guess without watching it. Meaning the score was closer than the game really was, if that makes sense. Which I always find is a weird way of describing a game, because no, that was the score. So in all reality, that's how close the game actually was.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the Lions were up 20 points at halftime or something like that.
I think it was 27-3 going into halftime.
Yeah. And the Packers played much better in the second half.
Yeah.
Much better. But still, from my perspective, a very enjoyable game.
Yeah. And it's one of those games where I think if the Packers would have come back and beat them, they weren't the better team on the field that night. So they didn't really deserve the win. I would have taken the W. I would have been fine with it.
Oh, yeah. But, you take whatever you can get.
But they did not play, they were not playing top tier football that night. And I honestly say the same thing about the Brewers this last week in the first round of the playoffs. Is they were getting people on base. They've really focused a lot this year on the small ball. Not so much hitting home runs, but being able to put balls in play and keep the bases moving, and they've done really well at that this year. But one of the things that is kind of a problem when you play like that is you end up leaving people on base, and that's really what bit them this last week against Arizona. I think there was at least on Wednesday night, there was at least 2, maybe 3 innings where they had the bases loaded with with no outs or 1 out, and they couldn't get anybody home. And it's just, you've got to be able to, especially when you've got players on second and third, it takes a good base hit into the outfield to score those 2 guys. And if you can't do it, it's rough. You're not going to win the game that day. So you got to get you guys around the bases. But I like the idea of playing small ball. It's a little bit more exciting to watch. And I think, if you're going for a good base hit instead of trying to hit a home run, you're more likely to get a hit, because you're more patient. You're not looking for that. You're not looking to, hit it out of the stadium. You're just looking to put the ball in play. And so I think it can be a very successful strategy, but you got to get your guys around and get them home. So the iPhone 15 Plus, or the iPhone 15, 15 Plus, 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max, all the iPhones are now out and ready for order. And we talked on the last episode, you were kind of wavering a little bit as to what you were going to do. I was sure about what I was going to do, and then kind of reneged a little bit when I started to see the cost of everything. I have ordered something now. So we spent the last couple of weeks looking at deals and figuring out what was going to be the most advantageous.
Z Fold Flip.
No, well, I got a flip phone, but not that one. I'm just kidding.
What?
I'm just kidding. No, there was just a little LG like burner phone. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Get your day phone and your night phone.
It's
podcast jokes.
It's funny because I get those at where I work because we do battery recycling, and so every time I get a flip phone, I carry it around with me throughout the day. I'll put it to my ear and act like I'm talking about. I'm just dumb, but it's fun. So, but no, before I tell you what I got, did you end up getting anything or?
Nope, I'm still rocking my 13 Pro.
Okay.
It's in really good shape. Like really good shape, and not just like, like physically, like it would matter if I were to trade it in, but like it's snappy, it's fast. I still have a ton of storage, even though I can shoot 4K, and like all of the things, right? Like it's just still a really good phone. And if I wait a couple months, I own it outright, which means I can keep it, or I can sell it for cash, or trade it in. Like it gives me more options that are more, I guess, financially fruitful if I hold on to it for a couple months than stay in the cycle that I've been in for the last 6 or 8 years when it comes to the iPhone 2-year whatever. And it's not like the 15 isn't a really, really nice piece of equipment. It sure is. But for the first time since I've had a smartphone, which has been like 13 years, whatever, 12 years, the first time I haven't been like, I must upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want a 15? Yeah. Is some of the camera stuff, and do I want the dynamic island, and do I want USB-C, and I want all of that, but I can wait a couple months and it will benefit me to do that because the phone that I have, this is the first Pro phone I've ever owned. I've said before, it's still really nice. And there's nothing about it that I'm like, so
I don't disagree with you at all on what you're saying. My biggest calculus in upgrading now is that as we're looking at different deals and what we can get for pricing and such like that, two things. Number one, if you go through Apple, you're doing a 2-year financing, which all gets thrown onto an Apple card. I think they might have one other option for that, but that's the way we've done it in the past. And if you go through the carriers, it's usually a 3-year deal to get it. So you're paying for it over 3 years. And the other half of it was, if I'm going to dedicate myself to 3 years for a plan, I don't want that phone to cost a lot. And my best deal right now is to get my phone through my current carrier, through Verizon, take the trade-in offer that they're offering me. My wife has a regular iPhone 13, and I've got the iPhone 13 Pro Max. We both got $830 towards the new phone each. So it's going to be like $1,660 for both of our phones that we're getting from Verizon to update. And that brings my payment down to like just over $15 a month, and hers to like $7 a month. And that just gets rolled right into our plan. So, and it really, Jamie was doing the numbers last night, and she's like, we're saving $60 a month by doing it this way. I was like, that's not bad. I kind of like that.
That feels wrong.
Yeah.
We're getting a new phone.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you're getting the same amount of money for two very different devices is interesting to me.
I questioned it, and I'm like, but it was very clear, like, this is what we're offering. So I'm like, okay, you guys are crazy, but I'm going to take it. But I think if we had 14s, they were offering $1,000 per phone, but because we were on the 13s, they were less. But at any rate, when all was said and done, we're looking at it going, I think we'd kind of be crazy right now to wait another year, because next year we're not going to get this kind of money back for our phones. I might get half that. So we would be then spending 3 years paying even, more money. So really, from that standpoint, we were looking at, it's going to be saving us money over the next 3 years to buy them now, as opposed to waiting another year. Which, I'd had made peace doing that, just waiting, because right now my wife and I are kind of in a period where we're trying to save money, we're trying to do better with our finances and stuff like that, which is why we made the calculus this way. But we're looking at, are we going to be in that much better of a situation a year from now, where we're going to be able to afford to pay let's say twice as much a month for our phones? And really, when it came down to it, it made more sense to do it now than to do it later. So, and I will tell you, up until last night, I was planning on just getting the 15 Pro. And because part of it was, well, it's more of a one-handed phone. I can get around it a little bit easier. But then last night I was sitting there thinking, and I'm like, and I had everything set up to order it that way. And I looked at Jamie and I says, do I get the 15 Pro and be okay with the smaller device, be okay with not getting the 5x optical zoom? I just kind of feel like if I'm signing on the dotted line for 3 years, I'm not going to regret getting the bigger phone, but I might regret getting the smaller phone. And so I ran the numbers on it, and it was literally like $2 a month difference. And so I made the decision just to go with the Pro Max. So
nice.
So that's where I'm at. And I know part of the reason why is that the ATP, the guys were talking about it, and Marco's like just adamant that the Pro Max is ridiculous. Even though there's so many people out there that love the Pro Max. And he's all, it's ridiculous. It's way too big. I used to joke, do you need a wall mount for that phone? Because they're so big. But you know how you wall mount a TV? Never mind. Anyway, so I got thinking, and I was like, maybe it is kind of a big phone. There's a lot of people that are really happy with the smaller phones. It's a truly one-handed device. So, you can navigate everything with one hand. And then I just got thinking, I think I'm going to regret going with the Pro Max or the Pro. I'm more likely to regret going with the Pro than I am the Pro Max. So I'm happy with what I have. And so upgrading to the same size I don't think is going to hurt anything. And technically the new phones are slightly smaller, and I don't know that it's going to make any difference, but because they pulled the bezels in, they were able to make the phones just slightly smaller. So
I've never had a Max or a Plus.
Yeah.
Ever. And I already feel like the normal size one is big in my pockets.
So I grabbed my wife's phone, which would roughly be the size of the Pro, and I grabbed my phone, which is obviously the Pro Max, and I sat there and I thought, okay, could I handle the smaller phone? So I put her phone in my hand and I was playing with it, and and I could see like I can get around the interface a little bit more easily because it's smaller. But then I'm starting to realize that the text is smushed in a little bit more. The any of the apps that I use that really take advantage of the extra screen space just won't have that space. And so everything's going to be smaller. Everything's going to be, a little bit more difficult to read. And we've talked about it before. I'm 47 now, as of last Sunday. My glasses are not, my glasses do okay, but the larger text helps, so I think think, like I said, I think the Pro Max is a good size for me, and I'm happy with it. So, all right. Anyway, have you updated to any of the operating systems that you didn't have before, like say Sonoma?
Not yet. My plan was to upgrade my work machine to Sonoma, but my company has recently gotten what's the right word? Smart when it comes to how they provision out their Macs. Before it was kind of the Wild West, and then they were really locked down on all the PCs, and like the few of us that had Macs were like, we could do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Which in corporate America is not usually how they. And like about 2 months ago, they implemented a new, like what's the right word? Like enterprise level provisioning for the Macs, and we have this new deal that we update our apps through that system versus that whatever, and Sonoma's not allowed yet. So my plan was to test it on my non-podcasting machine.
Yeah.
And I went to go do that yesterday, and I found out I can't yet because the IT department says no. So my plan was thwarted.
I'm 100% updated everywhere. And
I did update my watch though to the new. And that's like, there's some gestures, like you used to slide up on your watch from the bottom to get to notification the control center. And now it's your widgets, I think.
Yeah. You have to use the side button to get to your
which is funny because the side button is how you used to get to your apps. Like they just switched them.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, for my muscle memory, not a fan of, but obviously I'll get used to it. Not a big deal, but
I would have liked the option to keep the control center a swipe up and keep the dock in the button, but they've eliminated the dock. And now you can double tap or double click on the digital crown to bring up like an app switcher, so you can see your most recent apps there. So that's kind of like that, but you can't pin anything there. So I guess what they're looking at is the widgets replacing the dock. And I'm not a huge fan because not everything that I would normally want in my dock has widgets. So, I mean, I use the dock a little bit. I actually really didn't use the dock a lot, but yeah, I do like the widgets on the watch though. So
yeah, it's going to take some getting used to, I think.
Well, we'll check back later down the road and see how you're feeling about that. So, all right, I think everything else we've talked about. Once you get the opportunity to update to Sonoma on one of your machines, maybe we can have a little bit more conversation about that.
Yeah, I'd like to. Because I think that would be a worthwhile discussion to have for sure.
Yeah. And there's a couple other things I've noticed lately that maybe we'll do on another episode because Bartender was updated. I don't know if you use Bartender I love Bartender. But they added some new features to that that are really nice quality of life improvements. There's a few other things, but we can certainly do apps at another time. Because we want to get into talking about Ahsoka this morning.
Yes, we do.
So why don't we go ahead and hit the sounder and we'll get into our main topic for today. All right. So you finished watching the season last night, correct? By the way, spoiler horn. If you haven't seen we're not going to hold back. We're going to talk about everything. So if you haven't watched Ahsoka, the season finale yet, or any of it, and you are going to watch it, don't listen right now. Pause right now and come back after you've watched it, and you can hear our ideas and what we think and all that. So, but having said that, what did you think, man?
Overall, really good. Like, I think they cast Ahsoka perfectly. I think Rosario Dawson's phenomenal as Ahsoka. Just because she looks so much like a real, because like Clone Wars, they look cartoony, like their noses are giant, like you know what I mean, like they look like cartoons. But like if you were to take teenage Ahsoka cartoon, make her look like a human, and age her, you couldn't do much better than Rosario Dawson, right? And so one, that's cool. I also really loved some of the other people that they cast and how they, you know, were portrayed. But I also know that I'm operating at maybe like a 40% capacity of the storyline because I haven't seen Rebels. I've seen a bunch of Clone Wars, you know, and Ahsoka obviously is in that and has shown up in The Mandalorian a couple times. But so from someone who is not fully knowledgeable of the entire backstory, I know way more about Thrawn than I do about Ahsoka and Ezra Bridger and Sabine and Hera. Like that whole swag, because again, I haven't seen Rebels yet. It's gonna happen, but I really enjoyed it. I know that there's references to stuff that I've missed. That video that I think that you're going to talk about that you sent me the other day, was really helpful for the final scene with Baylan Skoll standing on. I was like, I know who those people in the statues are now.
Yep.
and I had seen that episode in Clone Wars, but that was a year and a half ago, and I'd forgotten all about it. And so when you showed me that video, I was like, oh, I remember this. This was such a weird little, you know, they do like those 3-episode story arcs in Clone Wars. And I was like, that was a really, really weird one. I didn't really know what was going on. And we can get into that in later.
Yeah, I guess what he's talking about is when Anakin and trying to remember who all was there. I think Obi-Wan was there. Anakin and Ahsoka were all there, and they went to Mortis and met the ones, the father, the daughter, and the son. If you haven't seen that story arc, that's kind of a big deal. I think going forward. I think that they revisit that very briefly in Rebels, in the sense that at the Jedi Temple there's a mural that is a big part of one of the story arcs there that has the father, the daughter, and the son on it. And in that video, I think they might have shown that mural, but yeah. So that's one of those little. Like, I really wish that everybody who watched these TV shows had all of this backstory, because, you know, Clone Wars is really, and I've had conversations lately with people. I tried to get into Clone Wars and I just couldn't. I was like, yeah, because you started in the first season, and the first season is very kiddie, very, you know, very entry level kind of stuff. I was like, you really. You know, once you get to season probably 3 or 4, it's really good TV. And by the end, it's some of the best TV out there. Like, I think the final season of Clone Wars is just phenomenal. It's really good stuff. And I think the Rebels kind of goes the same way, where Rebels starts off pretty slow, you know, establishing characters, you know, there's a little bit of a kid kind of element to it. And then as it goes, it matures and it grows up and gets really good towards the end. So don't, like, if you're listening to the podcast and you're saying, I don't watch cartoons, they're for kids. And I've heard that from people. Those 2 series, like, yeah, they kind of start out slow, but man, once you get about midway into either one of those series, they get really good and really adult. Like, it's good stuff. So don't be afraid. It's good stuff. But having said that, I think that, you know, you mentioned about you thought the casting for Ahsoka was really good. I thought they did a really good job with a lot of the characters they pulled over from Rebels. I was kind of hoping to see Zeb. You know, we saw Zeb in The Mandalorian. I thought that probably was maybe a test to see if they could make it look right, and then they were going to bring it into Ahsoka, because he was part of the squad. So it only makes sense that he would been in this, but apparently they decided not to. But it was pretty packed anyway. And oddly, the whole team from Rebels kind of split up, and then this is bringing them together a little bit again. I wish they would have done more with Chopper, because Chopper is it's such a fun droid. I think it's definitely my favorite droid out of the bunch. And I think that Huang as a droid, that was a delight in this episode. I think this was the C-3PO for this generation, because he's got that kind of feel to him. He's a little sassy, but he's real smart, knows his stuff. You know, he was in Clone Wars, and so they're bringing him out of the Clone Wars. But I thought he was a real delight. I think the only thing that might have really bothered me as far as casting was concerned was Hera, but I don't know how you would have done Hera better. You know, at first I thought she was a little bit too bright lime green, because in Rebels, she's got kind of this dull green look to her. But as the season went, I think it grew on me a little bit. I think if it was me, I probably would have made the green a little bit duller to have the look right. But other than that, I thought they did a really good job with all the characters. Sabine was pretty spot on. I think they were really smart about how they did Ezra. That they didn't try to make him look exactly like the Ezra from the cartoon. They gave him a beard and some hair and kind of like dirtied him up a little bit, so they didn't have to match him exactly, because I think that would have been a little weird.
He's been living on this wild planet, you know? What's he going to shave and cut his hair with?
Well, but you get my point.
His lightsaber?
You know, if he would have shown up and like been like this baby face kid with a crew cut, like that wouldn't have really worked, I don't think. So, you know, I think they did the right thing in giving him the beard, giving him the hair. You know, it all worked really well for his character. Who else was in there? I mean, we'll talk about Thrawn in a minute, but yeah, I think they did a really good job with a lot of those characters. I'm probably forgetting somebody, and I shouldn't, but
well, I mean, so like I don't. Again, I'm working with limited knowledge. I thought Ray Stevenson, who plays Baylan, he's just a very, very good, like, I mean this as a compliment. He reminds me of an old school big heel in wrestling, where everything's methodical and slow and just imposing, right? Like his beard, his shoulder pad, like everything about him is like, I'm a bad dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take my time, but I'm you know, like he just had that old school villainous, but then like he would talk about, you know, what happened to him as a youngling and then the stories they were told and the balance. So like you could tell like, okay, yeah, this dude is a physically imposing guy, but there's a lot going on. And why he's doing smart. What he's doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's processing and he's thinking very deeply about the universe and the purpose of, you know, like very existential in that regard, which for Star Wars is not common. Usually the bad guys are just bad guys. And, you know, like they're good at Kung Fu or whatever, if they're Darth Maul, or, you know, they're just angry. But here's a guy that feels conflicted. Like honestly feels like someone who is jaded against the Jedi. And he has a red lightsaber, but he does not strike me as the prototypical, you know, Sith guy. He's not Kylo Ren, who's just angry at the world, you know, and needs to listen to more Dashboard Confessional to get over it. But like, this is a grown man who has been through some crap and is trying to figure out his place in the universe and why good is there and why bad is there. And like, am I projecting a little bit on where I think he comes from? Yeah, but the fact that we can even have this conversation about a bad guy in Star Wars is like, okay, we've moved beyond bad guy tropes and we're into something a little more meaty.
Yeah.
as far as why they're doing, and what the character's motivation is and all of that. But I thought it was a fresh and enjoyable take on a bad guy that you're like, you know what? I can understand why he would feel this way based on some of the crap that he's seen, and those are I always like it when you can at least understand why someone would do what they're doing as the bad guy, right? Instead of it just being like, oh, I'm a bad guy, so I'm just going to be a bad guy. It's actually, it makes it more believable and relatable when you're like, you know what? I get it. I still think you're a bad guy, and I still think you're doing what you're doing is wrong, but I could understand how you could get there if that is your experience and that's your worldview and this is what you believe to be true. I could totally see why you would feel justified. And those are always the best villains, is because they don't think they're a villain.
Yeah,
they have justifications for everything that they do, and I think that also is what makes Thrawn appealing.
Right.
Is
you want, especially if you've read the books, you want to like Thrawn. Like he genuinely comes off as a guy who cares about the people around him. But like I've said in past episodes, there's an ounce of sociopath in him too. That he's just like the fact that he just very casually says, "Oh, and if they don't come back, that's fine. We can leave them here." And
even the TIE fighters that he sends in the last episode, his reaction, those are acceptable losses. Consider the TIE fighters gone, give the captain citations or whatever. Like, that's the most sociopathic I've seen him.
Yeah.
Oh, multiple people I just sent people to their death. Great. Acceptable losses, move on. And I'm in my 6th Thrawn book.
Yeah.
And that one scene, I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, well, he comes off that way in Rebels as well. And I think that you're so close to him in the books and you understand his thinking so much in the books that I think to a certain degree, he doesn't come off that way as much in the books because you're in his head and you're understanding how he's thinking.
There's like 1 or 2 times where I was like, okay, I get what Mitch is talking about. But most of the time I'm like, he seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. But one thing I need to correct you on with Baylan, Baylan and Shin both have orange lightsabers. If you look, there's a very subtle difference between their lightsaber and the Marac's.
So they're not totally bad.
Well, the reason that this is important is that typically speaking, if somebody's got an orange lightsaber, it means it's a partially bled yellow lightsaber. So it's not completely, and you know what I mean by that? Like when a Sith would become a Sith, they would bleed their kyber crystal. Basically, they'd pour their hate and anger into it, and it would turn red. This is one that didn't completely turn red. They only turn partially red. So you get that orange color. I think it's interesting that they both have orange lightsabers. That there's something going on there that maybe we'll get. Someone suggested that the next season of Visions might have some backstory on Baylan, which I'm fingers crossed. I would really love that. But yeah, so the orange lightsaber is about all we can really ascertain from like what his turn was. And he obviously was, he's not really in anything else. This is a new character that they brought in for this show. And so getting some backstory on him and understanding his motivations and such, I think would be interesting. But I also think that if you're going to think realistically about the Jedi Order in the prequel trilogy, a lot of these guys are not wrong. Like the Jedi Order was out of control. The Jedi Order should have never really been generals in a war. This was very, very contrary to what the Jedi stood for. And I love that Filoni's bringing that out because there's a lot of that in those scenes with Ahsoka and Anakin, where Ahsoka is like, "Why are we doing this? We shouldn't be doing this." And he's like, "Well, you have to learn to do this," And I think think there was a lot. Filoni's got this really nice. I like his viewpoint on all of this, where he's saying, you know what? If you feel bad about the way that the Jedi were handled in the prequel trilogy, here's why. Like they had grown too big, and they were too powerful, and they were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. You know, and so it was, it's interesting to take it from that point of view. And if you go back before the prequel trilogy, I think you understand that even more. Because there's some stuff in like the High Republic novels where they were getting big. They were starting to lose a little bit of that bringing peace to the universe. And they were starting to become more general like. But it's been an interesting concept that Filoni's been bringing around with some of this stuff. So,
which is interesting, right? Because for a number of reasons. One, Anakin was clearly a sociopath from day one, even as a little kid building the stupid speeders and robots. Like he was like, that kid is destined for a horror movie. So why not throw him into the middle of a war where he can get his aggression out? You know, and really, really hone that anger.
Right.
You know, but also it makes me wonder, like, was Yoda really that wise? If, you know, the Jedis are becoming generals in a war, you know, Yoda's supposed to be this wisest of wise, you know, whatevers. And it just, I don't know. It really makes you question a lot of that stuff, you know, because Qui-Gon was convinced that Anakin was the one to bring balance to the Force, which we've always talked about, is like balance goes two ways. And if the Jedi were super powerful and overextending their power, well, then balance means the bad guys got to come in, you know,
right,
rise up. And just so a lot of, I don't know if like hubris is the right word, but like it just feels like there was a comedy of errors that led to them setting Anakin up to become who he became.
Yeah. No, Anakin doesn't shoulder all of the blame for that.
Yeah, no, they mishandled him left, right, and center, frankly. Because like you can even see it in Clone Wars in the cartoon. Like he's just an angry, violent guy.
Yeah. But at the same time, you start to see that in other Jedi as well, and you watch them temper it, because you see it in Ahsoka a little bit in this series, where when she's with Anakin, she's getting angry with Anakin, and you see where she like suddenly stops, and she's like, "No, I choose life," and realizes that no, I'm not going to go down that road, and I think that's part of what those scenes were for, is to help us to understand that he went down a road that he chose, and she was starting to find that road and said no, and stopped. And I think that was an interesting story arc, if you caught that subtle message that was through that. So, or maybe not so subtle. But all right, I was going to mention a little bit more about Thrawn. One of the things that I was really hoping for in this series, and we talked about how much I was looking forward to seeing Thrawn, but I didn't want them to screw this up, because any of these characters, bringing them into live action was going to be hard. It was going to be easy to say, oh, well, they did this wrong and they did that wrong and they screwed this up. I got to tell you, I think that if you wanted to nitpick Thrawn, he was old, you know, but he's old, you know, he's older at this point in the timeline. So for him to look like he's aged some, I think isn't bad. And one thing my wife said, she's like, oh, I imagined him being thinner. Well,
that was when I first saw him, I was like, no, Thrawn's a skinny boy.
Yeah. So when it comes to this, you know, I kind of headcanoned it that, hey, he's not as young as he used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's probably, probably not going to be the skinny little guy that he was. He's getting up in age, and, his body's going to start changing, and it's just the way it is. So I headcanon that out, but I appreciated the other subtle differences, or the other subtle things that they did to bring his character into the show. I was hoping that the blue was going to be a little bit darker, but I'll live with it, because the blue in his face and everything was lighter in Rebels, so I wasn't surprised to see that they went lighter. I wouldn't call it baby blue, but it was just a little bit darker than baby blue. But I think that they did some things in the show to kind of give you a range of different blue colors. Because when he goes into the shadows, like, that's the blue that I thought that he should be. Like, it's a darker blue. It's a little bit more of a moody blue. And I love that they actually made his irises glow a little. It wasn't overwhelming, but the books, as you know, they talk about how his eyes glow.
And how it makes everyone uncomfortable.
Yeah. So the glow in his iris was just perfect. It wasn't too much, but it was enough that you noticed it. So, and I thought that the way obviously Lars Mikkelsen played him in, or did the voice for him in Rebels. So he was the natural person to at least do this voice. But the fact that they brought him in to do the character, I thought he had the right look. I thought it worked. The one subtle thing that I would have liked to have seen done slightly differently is that the books describe his hair as being a blackish blue. And he just had black hair. So it would have been nice to see like a really, really deep blue color as opposed to black with his hair, but it's nitpicking a little bit. I thought that he had that like menacing presence, and it was everything that I was hoping it was going to be. So short of hearing all his machinations about how he was doing everything, like he did stuff that didn't make sense, or didn't make sense to the other characters that he was pitted against. There were questions about why he wouldn't send out as many soldiers to go after Sabine and Ezra, and for that matter, Baylan and Shin. They didn't send out a lot. He's like, well, we need to make sure that they're acceptable losses. We don't have that many left, so we can't. He sees his people as a resource, so he didn't want to waste his resources. But I think it was Morgan who was like, well, why don't you send more out? He's like, no. He's like, that's enough. And so, like there was gears grinding in his head about, this is what I need to do. So, but even though you didn't get an explanation as to why he did the things that he did, you could surmise what he was thinking. So,
yeah, he was good.
How about the night troopers?
We got like Walking Dead stormtroopers too. That was weird.
So it hasn't exactly been explained if the night troopers were already dead and reanimated, or if they were alive, which I'm going to think that they were alive, but at the point of them being in the fight and being killed, that they were reanimated at that point, because their eyes didn't glow before that. There is, you saw the story arc with the Night Sisters where they reanimated the dead Night Sisters to fight.
Yeah.
So the glowing eyes, and I thought it was interesting that a couple of them, like the Death Troopers, were already corpses, that they were already dead and reanimated. So maybe they all are. I don't know, but it was a really interesting look for a lot of them too. with the red cloth around them, holding their armor together. The way that the armor was repaired with like a gold, and I'm sure that was something that the Night Sisters offered that they did.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Thrawn's like top dog stormtrooper with the creepy gold face.
Enoch, yeah.
Is he from?
He's a new character.
Okay, because I saw him and I was like, I don't know who that is, but it is very off-putting. His weird, creepy face.
I thought it was cool. Yeah, it was a real callback to like the Roman Empire, and masks that were used back then. So I thought it was a really cool touch. But you saw that gold. Like everything that was gold seemed to be like they fixed something about something, which I'm assuming that the Night Sisters probably provided that. And even when you see the Chimera come in, the ship, his Death Star, you see that come in. I'm sorry, not Death Star.
Star Destroyer.
Star Destroyer. Yeah, thank you. When you see that come in, like there's whole parts of the ship that are gold that have been replaced and fixed.
Well, and even the underside has like designs.
Oh, the underside.
As well.
That's Thrawn's essentially the symbol that the symbol that came from the Thrawn Ascendancy books. Remember back when he gets the ring from the guy? And that's the symbol that's on that ring. So he takes that symbol as his own. And so then, even in Rebels, he has that on the bottom of the bottom of his Star Destroyer. So this was just being transferred into the this show. I'm really glad they had it on the bottom of the Star Destroyer because it would have been weird if they didn't. So, but that's the Chimera symbol or whatever that he took on when he was still in the Chiss Ascendancy. But yeah, I thought this was really pretty show too. Like there's so many just really cool images. There are certain spots in this show that you can just pause it and just really just appreciate how beautiful everything is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'd be nice to know some of the locations they shot at.
One thing we should talk about, one of the things that we didn't get paid off, and there's a list of stuff that didn't get paid off this season, but one of the things we didn't get paid off was who is Baylan looking for? Or what is he looking for on Peridea?
I think he is looking for... I don't have anything funny.
Yeah.
I reached into my brain and there was not a joke to be had. I'm sorry.
So the prevailing idea from a lot of the guys on YouTube that have been looking into this, and I think that there's some reason to believe that this could be happening, is that it's Abeloth. So Abeloth was, and I think you got this in the video that I sent you because I wanted you to kind of be prepped for this. But Abeloth shows up in the Fate of the Jedi series of books. That is Legends now. It's not considered canon. So if they bring Abeloth into this, they're bringing Abeloth back into canon. But who she was a servant of the Ones. So the Father, the Son, and the daughter. She was a servant of theirs and eventually was given the powers of the Ones and her name became the Mother. She then was corrupted and went and bathed in the pool of power and the pool of knowledge, I think, if my memory serves. I could be wrong about that, but and her whole body was corrupted to, she gets this like really, really long smile, like her mouth changes. She's got tentacles for fingers. She's like just a really scary looking creature, but is extremely dangerous at this point. Like she can disintegrate people with a thought. Like she's bad. She's bad. Like really bad.
When I saw the thumbnail for the video you sent me, I was like, oh, I'm getting some Bray Wyatt Fiend mask vibes.
But But this is a character that's been in Legends for a while, and this could be what Balin is looking for. And I think that the statue of the father and the son at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been some discussion about this. Number one, the daughter has been damaged or destroyed next to them. You can see where the daughter was, and the head is gone. The son has a scar going through the one eye. And there's been some ideas that might not be the son, but rather Anakin, because the son didn't have a scar. Anakin had a scar through from over his eye to under his eye, and he got that during a fight with Asajj Ventress in Clone Wars.
And she was from Dathomir.
Yeah, she eventually was a Night Sister. She wasn't at that point, but.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why would there be a statue of Anakin on that planet, though?
I don't know.
That's in a different galaxy. Also, okay, I have something else I want to say, but we'll save it till after we have this discussion because it's a total change in this topic.
But the thought is that the father is pointing to either those pools, like the pool of knowledge and the pool of whatever, and Balin's going to go bathe in those and become more powerful, or Abeloth is there. And what my thought is, and this has not been postulated, but Abeloth, if she is currently like dead or captured, she can shapeshift, and she can also possess people. And so my thought is that she's gonna possess Shin, and Shin is going to become Abeloth. But anyway, those are my thoughts. That's about all I've got for that.
Okay, well, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So in the Clone Wars, little mini arc where Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and Anakin are with the Ones, that's not the planet that they're on in where Thrawn is, right?
No. They were on Mortis in the Clone Wars, and this is Peridea.
This is a planet in a different galaxy, right?
Well, and the thing is, in Clone Wars, you don't really know where this planet is that they went to, because they were for lack of a better term, they were warped into this other place. They landed on this planet, and then they were warped out. So we don't really know where Mortis is.
Right. And I guess my thought is if this was the same place, then Ahsoka would recognize it, right? Oh, I've been here before.
Possibly.
Sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I'm thinking is those sculptures are ancient, obviously. So how the heck could it be Anakin if they're that old? Unless the scar was put in, at a later date. So anyways, there's that. Can I talk about the one thing that made me laugh out loud?
Sure.
Is the space whales that have hyperdrives for butts?
Mm-hmm.
What?
That's
sorry.
That's in Rebels.
Excuse me.
That's from Rebels. So
I literally, when they open their tentacles and there was just a hyperdrive for a butt, no, I don't understand what's happening right now.
It's in their tentacles. It's not in their butt.
They open their tentacles and there's the hyperdrive there.
Yeah.
So I laughed so hard when I saw that. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
So,
of all the things in Star Wars that are completely unbelievable, and there are many, whales that can jump into hyperspace, it's just I can't do this one. And I don't know why that's the one that.
So when you watch Rebels, that's how Thrawn ends up on Peridea. Because Ezra, I'm going to ruin this for you because you just hurt my feelings.
That's fine.
But Ezra has a power to communicate with animals. So the Purrgil are there on Lothal when they're liberating Lothal, and to get rid of Thrawn, Ezra gets onto Thrawn's ship, onto the Chimera, and the Purrgils. Long story short, the Purrgils grab the Chimera, and then they go into hyperspace and take him to Peridia to end the battle. And so that's how they got there in the first place. But you realize this is in a galaxy far, far away, right? It doesn't have to make sense in our world.
I know. And that's why I prefaced it with in a story that has many, many things that are unbelievable. For whatever reason, that's the one that got me this time around. It's like, oh, sure. Moving things with your hand, lightsabers. The fact that they can do faster than light travel and all of their controls look like 1970s TV device. and their hologram communications are like old school TV fuzzy. I'm like, yep. You can travel through space at faster than light, and you don't even have anything remotely close to standard def, let alone HD or 4K.
Well, what's even funnier?
Ridiculous.
What's even funnier than that is that it never improves.
I know.
It's like
their technology is their like design language is stuck.
We have a 100-year span roughly between episode 1 and episode 9, and everything, it never gets better. So
and like their rank plates are literally a piece of metal with plastic circles glued on. I get like you're going for a vibe here, but there is no progress in their technology throughout the stories. Mm-hmm. And that's what blows my mind. And I get like you want to honor the originals. Mm-hmm. The originals were made 50 years ago. 40 years ago. And they did and there was a certain vibe, like the whole Death Star thing, like just, awesome. But this is not then. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not too far in the future from like Return of the Jedi and that sort of stuff. But anyways, yeah, that part of it does crack me up.
All right. So, anything else you want to talk about? I'm kind of ready to wrap this up.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So to wrap it up, I want to talk highs and lows. So what was your favorite parts of this and your least favorite parts of the season?
So I think my favorite part was I guess getting something brand new in a universe that is easy to be repetitive, right? Because I've seen the movies so many times, right? And so anytime we get shows like this or Andor, right? Or even Obi-Wan, which is a new look into a different part of his life, like we are gaining more access, new characters, new stories, new depth to what else is going on. And so like I was most excited about the show before I watched it to just be like, okay, we are breaking new ground. Now, are we rehashing some of what happened in Rebels? It's characters from that, but this is a new story after that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm now more excited to go back and watch Rebels, having seen this, because it's the classic Star Wars move. You watch this and then you go watch the prequel, even though in this case, Rebels came out first. Yeah. So I think for me, just as a Star Wars fan, it is cool to see, again, like Andor and this and the Mandalorian, and as much as I didn't really enjoy the Book of Boba Fett, we are gaining new ground and getting depth on old characters and introducing new characters and expanding the universe. And, it really does seem like Filoni is trying to bring in a lot of this still canonical. Some of it may not be, right? If Abeloth does happen, right? But just we're really expanding. And even the fact that like we got zombie stormtroopers, like that is totally a not Star Warsy type thing to do.
There's some legend novels.
But I'm talking like mainline movie Star Wars.
Right.
You never watch those and go, I bet we're going to get zombies. That fits.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it worked because the creepy, Night Sisters and the Great Mothers and, their weird black magic, as Thrawn calls it. And so, like, he is pushing our view of what is possible in this universe further. And even getting into, like, lore of what was or what could be and that sort of stuff. So for me, that's, I think, what I like the most of it, which I realize is not like a singular thing, but more of what the show represents.
Mm-hmm.
Something I didn't like, a low for me, and this is related specifically to the show, is we start the show with Ezra in exile and Sabine and Ahsoka working through their issues. And the show ends, and Sabine and Ahsoka are still working through their issues, although probably a better spot, but they're now in exile, and Ezra is back. And so it just feels like we're kind of where we started.
Yeah, just everybody's switched.
Yeah. And that to me is a little like, okay, I get it. We're setting up season 2, but we've literally done nothing but flip where they're at. And yeah, also Thrawn's back.
Yeah.
So, like, the one thing you didn't want to have happen happened. And again, I get how that sets up a compelling season 2, but, like, as the end of season 1, it's just kind of like,
yeah, they've set it up for season 2 where they can have 2 simultaneous stories going on with what's going on Peridia and what's going on back in the galaxy. And so
from that regard, it's not a low. Because like in the arc of the story total,
mm-hmm.
this makes a really good Act 1. But when all you have is Act 1 and you can't be like, okay, let's watch it. It's just like, okay, now I have to wait 12 to 16 months, right? To move past this part that in a greater storyline makes total sense. But right now it's just kind of like, well, I feel stuck.
So I think what we're going to start seeing, and I think COVID affected this a lot, because we didn't have movie theaters for movies and stuff like that. So a lot of what happened with Star Wars went into TV shows instead of movies. But there's a rumor now that there's 2 more series coming soon that are actually not going to be a part of it, have anything to do with this. Well, Skeleton Crew might. I can't remember what Skeleton Crew is all about. But the Acolyte's supposed to be coming, and that's supposed to take place before Phantom Menace. So that's going to be kind of a prequel of the prequel, to as far as storyline. But the rumor is right now that Filoni has a movie coming. So could the movie be a continuation of this story instead of having to wait to a season 2? Because they would be bringing in more. Maybe they bring in the Mandalorian. Maybe they do like now I don't know if I'm okay with this. I'm just going to preface this, but they do something like a Avengers style event because that was always the dream, or that was always the idea when Lucasfilm was bought, is that they were going to be handled like the Marvel stuff that Disney had been doing. So, and they've been laying that groundwork where they've been showing a little bit about this and a little bit about that. And maybe it's all climaxes into a movie where we're trying to take down Thrawn. Thrawn's the big bad, but you've got the Mandalorians and the Mandalorian and, Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians on Mandalore, along with, the rebellion or the Republic coming after them to fight. And they just bring them all together to fight Thrawn, because they're setting up for an epic battle. All of those caskets or stasis pods or whatever they are that they were bringing out of the Night Sisters temple. There's a story here. Like, yeah, those are probably zombie hordes that they're bringing out to fight for the Republic or for the Empire. This is an army, I think, that Thrawn's bringing back to fight for him. So,
yeah, and like, as cool as that would be,
Oh my gosh.
What?
I just made a connection.
Okay.
So in the original Thrawn trilogy, that's Legends now, Thrawn goes after Jedi Master Sabaoth. He's a dark Jedi who is gone crazy. He's very much senile, and Thrawn gets him because he's really powerful, and he uses him to coordinate attacks because Sabaoth can reach out and control people, and so he's controlling all of the pilots and the hordes or the army for Thrawn so that they can simultaneously attack things. I won't say much more than that because there's a particular battle that this really is emphasized in the original Thrawn trilogy. And so Jedi Master Sabaoth is this all-powerful thing. Now let's look at Ahsoka, and let's look at how Thrawn is bringing the Night Sisters back into the galaxy, along with all these presumably zombies that are going to fight for him, and the Night Sisters control the zombies. I'm seeing a parallel between the two. Like, they're not exactly the same, but they're similar. And I think this is going to be really interesting. So anyway,
very good.
I should probably talk my highs and lows once you're finished.
Yeah, good, because I forgot what I was going to say. So
all right. No, I just made that connection, and I'm like, oh shoot, that could actually be a thing. Cool. Anyway, highs for me, I love the Baylan character. Like we said, I think he's really, really interesting. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but Ray Stevens passed away.
Yeah, he died in May.
Yeah. So we're gonna.
That's sad.
It's sad, definitely.
He was only 58. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I didn't look into it. I don't know how he died or what happened.
They haven't released the cause of death, but he was on set in Italy filming another movie.
Yeah,
and he was hospitalized and then died, and they have not released to the public, anyways, the cause of death. Which, 3 kids, like,
sucks.
Sad, but
we can say that.
Yeah, so we will, in theory, have someone else playing this character moving forward.
Well, and I think if I were to rewrite to make this make sense, he does find Abeloth, and he at least finds the pools of knowledge and of power, and he becomes transformed, and that's kind of how they manage. They work around the Ray Stevens not being in it anymore. But anyway. High for me, I love Baylan. I thought they did an awesome job with Thrawn. I think the imagery of the Chimera was amazing. I loved every minute of that. I think that this storyline between Anakin and Ahsoka was really good. I think it could have been fleshed out a little bit better, but I think it was really good. It was cool to see all almost everybody from Rebels. I think if I'm going to say point out any lows, I think, again, Hera could have been done a little differently. It's a nitpick, but it would have been nice to see her done a little bit differently. I'm trying to think of any of the other weirdness. The Night Sisters were an interesting choice. Morgan Elsbeth was an interesting choice for this. I'm not sure that I loved it, but they worked as a good counteraction or a good villain to our characters. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but I watched. There's like a 7-minute behind the scenes Ahsoka thing on Disney Plus. Morgan Elsbeth was in an episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She had the Beskar spear. And she fought with
I'd forgotten
Ahsoka.
all about that. And I was like, holy crap. Okay. Yeah. Totally didn't remember that part.
Yep. No, she was introduced in, was that season 2?
I don't remember.
Or
I want to say yes, but
season 2 or the Book of Boba Fett, maybe. I don't recall, but she was introduced when Ahsoka was brought into the Mandalorian. So because that was that same episode. Ahsoka shows up and fights Morgan Elsbeth in that episode, gets the Beskar spear and takes it to Mando, to Din Djarin. But yeah. Oh, so I didn't really have a whole lot of lows. I would have liked them to flesh out more Balin's journey, like what he was going after, instead of just totally leaving it hanging at the end and giving us like clues, but not anything definitive. So I would have loved a little bit more clarification, a little bit more story with him. I thought it was really weak at the end of the episode, or at the last episode, that the whole time I'm waiting, like, what are you going to do with Baylan? And there's no Baylan in this episode. And I felt like the episode was almost going to end without us seeing him at all. And then finally, like right at the very end, they show him standing on the hand of the father, looking out into the expanse. And with this idea that it's this way, like he's still on his path, and just ends the episode with that. And I thought, man, I would have liked to have seen more. And then with Shin kind of ending up with the locals, I'm not sure what to call them, but ending up with them. So they established that Shin's still there. She ran away from the battle in episode 7 and ends up with them. She's got that idea of kind of being lost and stuck between two worlds at this point. So she's either going to end up back with Baylan or with Ahsoka. So we'll see what happens in the next season. But I thought there was a few things that they could have done a little bit better at the very end to close some threads. But hopefully next year we'll get a lot of that. Other than that, I love the show. I thought it was really good, and I'm finding it hard to find anything to really be critical about. I know there was a lot of people criticizing the choreography in some of the episodes, and I would say to some degree I don't disagree, but as far as
the fight choreography,
I think early in the season it was a little weak. I think it got a little bit better towards the late season, but we also have to remember that when it comes to Ahsoka and Anakin, they were trained in the Jedi Temple. None of these other guys were really trained. They're all secondhand knowledge as far as the fighting styles and stuff like that when it comes to fighting with lightsabers. Mm-hmm. So Huyang's there to kind of continue the tradition as well. I was so scared they were going to kill him off
at the very end. Yeah,
I was so scared with that, and thankfully they didn't. But because he's such a good character, and he's such a great C-3PO for this show. So, that was a low point too. Why did you need to bring C-3PO into this show? Like, we were good. I know that they tried to throw those characters in every once in a while, but I didn't think it was really needed. All right. Well, we're getting close on time, so we want to do what's delighting us for today.
Sure.
All right. What's delighting you today, Cam?
Well, I am in 5.5 hours heading up to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin for a church retreat, and it's just like a quick 27-hour little getaway. And the last time I was in Lake Geneva was in high school for a sailing regatta. And it's incredibly pretty there. And I realize that's south for you, but it's north for me.
Yep. It's over by Milwaukee, if my memory serves.
Yeah, closer to Milwaukee than you for sure. But I'm excited. One, to get away. Two, it's going to be like in the 40s and 50s. The trees have started to turn. It's going to be glorious. I'm bringing my camera. I'm taking all the Lake Geneva fall photos that I can.
This weekend's going to be beautiful up here.
Yeah. But then also just kind of as again, like it's a retreat, so a time to get away and sort of refocus and spend time, studying the Bible in community with other dudes. Getting to know some folks. I've only been in this church for 4 months, so I've met people, but like this is an opportunity to meet more people, but also to spend time with the folks that I've become friends with already. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. It's going to be good. And I'm excited for some proper fall weather, which we really haven't. It was 80s all week down here.
Yeah, but same here. We've been 80s, maybe upper 70s.
It's October.
Yep.
The trees know it's time to be cold. They're starting to turn.
Yeah.
Even though it was 80. Like I'm looking outside, my neighbor's tree is like a quarter red. And I'm like, it's coming. Yep. Can't wait.
No, it's today actually. This Friday. What is it? The 6th today, October 6th that we're recording. Is our first day that in a long string of days where our highs are all in the mid 50s. So. And
yeah, the bottom dropped out.
And next week we have at least one day where like the low overnight is 34. I think it's Monday night, if my memory serves.
Now we're talking.
But yeah, it's cooling down. So
winter is coming.
I'm not a huge fan of winter, but fall, I love fall. So
yeah, I'm a fall and winter sort of dude.
Yeah, my wife is too. My wife's like, well, you got to like winter, you got to like summer. Those are the extremes. I was like, no, I like it in the middle. I don't want the extremes.
I'm good. Summer's too hot.
Can I just live somewhere where it's fall all the time? All right. And then I wouldn't appreciate it as much. So, but anyway.
One can never know.
Yeah.
All right. What's delighting you?
Well, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast. I don't think we did, but my little cat Bella passed away here a little over a month ago, and I won't go into the details, but she's been sick most of her life, and with intestinal issues and stuff like that. I probably talked about that on the show before, but she did finally just took her out, and it was sad, and we waited a couple weeks, and Jamie was talking about, well, we could look at getting another cat. And I was like, well, we could. I said, I wasn't sure that I was really ready for it. And at one point I just says, you know what, whether I'm ready or not, we just need to do something. And we had a cat come to our back door back by receiving where I work. And we brought it in and realized pretty quickly that it was pregnant. And we fed it and took care of it. And my coworker took her home with her. And a few weeks later, she had her kittens. And fast forward to 6 months later now, her kittens are ready to start leaving. Some of them she's already given away. But right away when she found out that we had lost one of ours, she's like, well, are you ready to take one of the what we I can't say that either. But we had a name for the cat that showed up at our back door, but it would give away where I work if I said it. So, but she said, well, her kittens are ready to start leaving now. So would you like one of them? And she picked one of them. And I says, well, I said, maybe. I said, we've got a bunch of stuff going on this weekend. Let's talk about it next week, and we'll figure it out. And so I went home. I talked to my wife about it. My wife is totally ready. I was still a little bit tortured about it. Going through everything that we went through with Bella was so hard that I was kind of feeling like I just don't want to go through all that stuff again. Everything's so quiet in the house right now. Everything's so peaceful. Schroeder's, he's kind of a handful on his own. So we were good just having him around the house. And so then over that weekend, my wife and I talked, and she's like, well, I'm ready. I was like, well, I should probably just be ready for this. if I don't make the decision to be ready, I might not ever be ready. So I told the lady that I work with that we were ready to take her. And so a week ago Tuesday night, so it's been about a week and a half now, almost a week and a half. I brought home little Sabine. And my wife named her, just so you don't, and it was Sabine Wren that she named her after. But we brought home little Sabine, my little bean, and she has been just a delight. She's been giving Schroeder a run for his money. It's been so funny to watch the two of them because it has been a long time since I've had two cats that got along really well and didn't just tolerate each other. So it's been so much fun over the last week and a half. This is the easiest I've ever blended two cats together. When we brought Bella into the house, we had a much older cat and Bella was a much younger cat. And it took us a month to blend these two. And when I say that, that means that every time we're not supervising them, we have to put the new cat away. We have to put her in a bedroom somewhere or separate the two of them. And so we had to do that for a month with Bella because it was just really hard to keep them from fighting and causing a lot of problems with each other. So when it came to bringing Sabine into the house, I pretty much put her down on the floor and was like, okay, let's see how Schroeder handles her. And they made fast friends. By the end of the night, they were playing together and having fun with each other. We had to break them up a couple times because they were starting to get pretty wild. But since then, we can leave them alone together. She doesn't walk by him and like he just wants to pounce on her. And they were at the food bowl together this morning. She's a little pest. I think there's better words that I could use, but I can't use them I shouldn't say them anyway, but I can't use them on the podcast for sure. But she's a little pest for sure because, yesterday Schroeder was sitting on, we have a Poang chair, from, IKEA. And, she was sitting on the back, she was sitting on the back of the couch and then Schroeder was sitting in that chair and she got up off the back of the couch, walked over, got up on the back of the Poang chair and jumped down next to him and scared him, startled him a little bit. And then she's batting at him and giving him crap. And so she gets up and runs away and goes upstairs to get away from her. And she makes a mess of the blanket that was on the chair. And then she turns around and goes back over and lays back down on the couch. Mm-hmm. I was like, you little jerk. Mm-hmm. But Schroeder's handling it pretty well. So you can definitely see some of his paternal instincts coming out. He's playing the big brother role pretty well, taking care of her, but also playing with her and having fun with her and stuff. So it's been good. So yeah, that's what's delighting me this week.
Very good.
All right. Anything to add?
No.
All right. Well, the next big, I think Loki just started on Disney Plus, so we'll probably watch that, but I might wait because that one I'm not quite as excited about, but looking forward to The Acolyte when it comes out. So that's should be the next Star Wars show to come out. So that should be really fun and really good. So, all right.
Look into that.
Well, if you want to find out more or check out our back catalog, you can check us out at innerdialogue.show. That'll take you right to that page. And on that page is a feedback button. If you click that feedback button and fill out that form, you can ask us a question. You can make a comment. You can tell us how handsome we are, even though you can't see us because, you see us in your mind, right?
Oh, my gosh.
We are pretty handsome, though. So check that out. And you can also hit up our websites if you want to know more about us. Cam, where can people find you?
CamBrennan.com.
And you can check me out at mitchcraig.online. So thank you for joining us for a little bit of talk about the new Apple stuff and the Ahsoka series. And I hope it was fun and you enjoyed it. And if you didn't, hit up our feedback forum on the website, and we'll talk about it some more. All right. Well, see you later, man.
Bye.
Goodbye.